It's very easy, I would argue, to construct an argument. Once you set a precedent for removing titles from people that bring dishonour to the royal family and the monarchy, well, why wouldn't you do the same to Harry and Meghan?
Meghan Markle's post-royal reinvention was supposed to be a triumph until the cracks started showing in public. After leaving the royal family in 2020, Meghan and Prince Harry became the center of one of the most closely watched celebrity transformations in years. Major deals were signed, projects launched, and headlines followed everywhere they went. But behind the success, growing controversies, public backlash, and mounting questions slowly began changing the narrative. So where did things start going wrong? And why does the reality behind Meghan Markle's new life look far more complicated than people expected?
For the racism which apparently was aimed at Meghan Markle, which is just completely absurd. But by far the most sickening part of this show for me was the constant use of Harry's late mother, Princess Diana, to stoke sympathy for Meghan.
Join us as we uncover 10 revealing truths about where Meghan Markle's story really stands today. Number 10. The Netflix show nobody was watching. When Meghan Markle launched with Love, Meghan on Netflix in March 2025, the expectations that surrounded it were significant. This was her first solo television project, her chance to establish a public identity entirely separate from the royal story that had defined her media presence for the previous 5 years. The format was a lifestyle and entertaining show, featuring celebrity guests visiting her home to cook, arrange flowers, and generally spend time in the kind of warmly lit, carefully curated domestic environment that lifestyle television has been selling since the 1990s. The critical response was brutal from the beginning. The Independent gave the first season 1 star and described it as queasy and exhausting. The Guardian called Season 2 so boring, so contrived, and so effortfully whimsical that the review struggled to find a more charitable word. The Washington Post ran a piece on the holiday special with the headline asking, "What in the name of Wallace Simpson is going on with the repatriated royals' new Netflix special?" A headline that suggests a negative review is coming. The ratings numbers told the same story. Season 1 was only the 389th most-watched show on Netflix in the first half of 2025. That ranking was already so poor as to raise serious questions about the project's future. Season 2 and the holiday special did not make the top 1,000 shows in the second half of the year. From 389th to outside the top 1,000 is a drop of 633 places in the space of 1 season and 1 special. That is not a show that was struggling. That is a show that had stopped connecting with an audience almost entirely. The show carries a Rotten Tomatoes score of 23% across all of its episodes and specials, which puts it in the company of some of the most poorly received content in recent streaming history. And the numbers had very specific consequences. So what did those numbers actually cost her when the people who had been backing the whole project looked at the data and made a decision? Number 9. Netflix left and took $10 million of product with them. In March 2026, Netflix announced it was ending its investment in, as ever, Meghan Markle's lifestyle brand. The announcement was framed in the careful diplomatic language that companies use when they want to end a relationship without generating additional headlines, with both sides releasing statements about gratitude, growth, and exciting futures ahead. The reality behind those statements was considerably less comfortable. According to a detailed report from Variety, Netflix was sitting on more than $10 million worth of as-ever inventory at the time the partnership ended. The products, which included items like tea, baking mixes, jams, and food products bearing the as-ever branding, had been produced and warehoused in anticipation of a consumer demand that did not materialize at the expected scale. Netflix began distributing that surplus inventory to its own employees for free, which is one of the more unusual endings to a celebrity lifestyle brand partnership in recent memory. The original partnership between Meghan and Netflix dated back to 2020, when the couple signed a reported $100 million deal with the streaming platform. Of all the content produced under that original agreement, The only project that generated significant audience engagement was the 2022 docuseries Harry and Meghan, which detailed the couple's reasons for leaving the royal family. Everything that followed, including the 2024 Polo documentary and the With Love lifestyle series, did not perform at a level that would have justified the scale of the initial investment. Netflix and the Sussexes did sign a new first-look deal in August 2025, meaning the relationship was not severed entirely. But a first-look deal represents a significant step down from the original arrangement, giving Netflix the option to consider projects without committing to producing them. It is the entertainment industry equivalent of agreeing to take a call rather than agreeing to a meeting. So the streaming deal was downgraded, and the brand investment was withdrawn. But was the As Ever brand itself actually failing? Or was the product side of the story more complicated than the headlines suggested? Number 8. The brand that kept selling out but still lost its backer. The story of As Ever as a consumer product is genuinely more mixed than the narrative of total failure suggests, and getting the facts right matters. When As Ever launched in April 2025, its first product releases sold out in under an hour. Meghan posted on Instagram immediately after the sellout, writing that she could not thank people enough for celebrating, purchasing, sharing, and believing in the brand. Subsequent product launches had the same result. Wine sold out, baking mixes sold out, edible flower sprinkles sold out. The demand side of the equation was not the problem. The problem was the supply side. The initial months of the brand's operation were hamstrung by a shortage of stock, meaning that the sellouts that looked exciting from the outside were partly a function of there simply not being enough product available to meet demand. By August 2025, according to sources familiar with the business speaking to Newsweek, the supply problems had largely been resolved, and As Ever was maintaining consistent inventory on sale across more items. So why did Netflix pull its investment if the products were actually selling? The answer appears to be that Netflix's involvement was always intended as a launch platform rather than a permanent business arrangement, and that the streaming platform had tied its investment in As Ever closely to the performance of With Love, Meghan as a show. When the show failed to find its audience at the scale required, the commercial logic of maintaining a $10 million product inventory for a lifestyle brand connected to a show nobody was watching became very difficult to sustain. The brand itself continues to operate independently, and Meghan has said it is ready to stand on its own. The question of whether a lifestyle brand with a proven ability to sell out products can survive and grow without the distribution network and investment capital that a streaming giant provides is one that has not yet been answered. The next chapter of As Ever is being written in real time. But the brand and the show are only part of the picture, because the team around Meghan during this period was itself going through significant disruption, and the number of people who had left her professional circle told its own story. So how many communication staffers had actually walked out the door? Number 7. 11 communications staff in 5 years. One of the most consistently documented and least discussed aspects of the Sussex operation since 2020 is the extraordinary turnover in their communications team. Staff coming and going is normal in any organization. The specific rate at which communications professionals have left the Meghan and Harry operation is not normal. By the end of 2025, 11 press officers and communications staffers had cycled through the Sussex operation in 5 years. The most recent departure was Meredith Maines, who had been appointed Chief Communications Officer in March 2025 and left at the end of that same year after fewer than 12 months in the role. Before Maines, the Executive Director James Holt resigned in late December 2025. The two departures in close succession left the couple heading into 2026 without a core PR structure in place. In response to this, Meghan and Harry rehired Sunshine Sachs Morgan and Lilas, the New York-based public relations firm that had worked with Meghan during her Suits acting career and had been part of their team in the early post-royal period before being released in 2022. The return to a firm they had previously decided they no longer needed reflects the degree to which the internal communication structure had failed to stabilize. Reports also emerged in early 2024 that WME, the major Hollywood talent agency that had signed Meghan in April 2023, had distanced itself from her. Page 6 reported that industry insiders described her as too demanding and difficult to work with, and that she had not met with WME CEO Ari Emanuel since January 2023, despite interacting with more junior agents. WME's spokesperson denied the split, stating the agency continued to represent Meghan and Archewell, but the nature of the reported dynamic was notable regardless. The pattern of communications staff departures is one of the most concrete, measurable facts in the Sussex story of the past 5 years. Whatever its cause, it represents a genuine operational challenge for a public figure whose entire post-royal career depends on managing the way information about her reaches the public. And then there is the question of the marriage itself. Because if the professional story was complicated, the personal story behind it was generating its own set of very specific and very consistent reports. So what exactly were sources saying about Harry and Meghan's relationship? Number 6. Two people on different paths. The speculation about the state of Harry and Meghan's marriage became a recurring feature of coverage in 2025, driven by a consistent pattern of sourced reports describing two people whose professional and personal lives were increasingly running on separate tracks. Multiple reports described Harry spending significant time away from Montecito on his own, focused on his philanthropic work with the Invictus Games, his visits to Ukraine, and other charitable initiatives. Sources described him spending downtime with surf buddies and playing polo, with Meghan not accompanying him, which led to the couple being apart more and more. One source told people that the couple had a lot of work to do to get on the same page, and that the fear among some friends was that they could drift further apart over time. A report in Heat magazine, quoted across multiple outlets, described the couple as being on different paths professionally, with Meghan still focused on Hollywood and building her brand, while Harry was pursuing his philanthropic interests at a different pace. The source suggested that Harry found the celebrity networking scene in Los Angeles boring and was instead pouring his energy into Invictus and speaking engagements. They were described as moving in very different social circles. Their financial commitments remain significant regardless of the state of the marriage. Security costs have been reported at up to £2.2 million per year. The mortgage on their Montecito home, purchased for $14.6 million, requires ongoing servicing. Production overheads, household staff, and PR costs add to the picture. The financial independence they declared when they left royal life requires a continued level of commercial success that recent projects have not consistently delivered. None of the reports of trouble have been confirmed by either Harry or Meghan, and they have appeared together publicly at events, including the 2026 NBA All-Star Game in February. But the consistency of the sourced reports across multiple publications over more than a year represents something more than isolated speculation. The financial pressure that creates is its own category of difficulty. So what does the money picture actually look like for a couple running this operation at this scale? Number 5. The costs are real, and the revenue is uncertain. The financial reality of the Sussex operation since leaving royal life is one of the least discussed and most significant aspects of their story. The income has been substantial, the costs have been equally substantial, and the gap between the two has been narrowing. The original Netflix deal, reported at $100 million, was the largest single income source of the post-royal period. That deal produced one major hit in the 2022 Harry and Meghan docuseries and a series of projects that did not perform at a comparable level. The new first-look arrangement that replaced it represents a significantly lower level of financial commitment from Netflix. Harry's memoir, Spare, reportedly brought in close to £20 million in 2023, which was another major income source. Podcast deals, speaking engagements, and Invictus-related work have supplemented these. Against this, security costs alone have been reported at up to £2.2 million annually. The property, household staff, production companies, communications teams, and the general overhead of maintaining two distinct public personas at a global level create a cost structure that requires ongoing significant revenue to sustain. When projects fail to perform, the financial pressure is not abstract. It affects the ability to invest in the next project, which affects the quality of that next project, which affects how it performs. The couple's Archwell Productions banner still has projects in development, including a television adaptation of Carly Fortune's romance novel, Meet Me at the Lake, announced in 2023. There has been limited concrete news about the progress of that project. Meghan is also expected to make her first post-royal acting appearance in a comedy called Close Personal Friends, alongside Lily Collins, Brie Larson, Jack Quaid, and Henry Golding, which would represent a return to the acting work that first made her a public figure before the royal chapter. Those potential income streams are still hypothetical. The current financial reality is that the largest deal the couple ever signed has been replaced by a significantly smaller one, and the lifestyle brand that was meant to generate independent revenue is now operating without the streaming giant's investment and distribution support. And as the financial narrative became more uncertain, the public conversation around Meghan in 2025 began shifting in another direction entirely, one driven less by official headlines and more by the internet itself. Number 4. The viral moments that defined her year. The public's experience of With Love, Meghan in 2025 was shaped as much by social media as by the reviews, and the moments that went viral were not the ones her team would have chosen. The most widely circulated moment from the show involved Meghan taking Trader Joe's peanut butter-filled pretzels out of their original packaging, placing them in a clear plastic bag and labeling the bag with her guest's name. The gesture was apparently intended to represent a personal and considerate hosting touch. The TikTok community received it as a demonstration of someone going to elaborate lengths to perform simplicity, and the parodies that followed reached millions of views. The pretzel moment became a cultural shorthand for the specific criticism the show attracted, which was that it felt effortful and performed rather than genuine. Another moment that generated significant discussion was a scene in which actress Mindy Kaling referred to her on-screen persona as Meghan Markle, only for Meghan to correct her, saying, "You know I'm Sussex now." The correction, whatever its intention, struck many viewers as a strange prioritization in a casual social interaction and generated commentary about identity and self-presentation that the show's team had not intended. The Washington Post's Monica Hesse, reviewing the holiday special, wrote that the people who walk into Meghan's cottage on the show are supposedly her friends, but many behave as though they have just had a sack pulled off their heads and are trying to work out what is happening. That observation, delivered as a critique, captured something that many viewers described while watching the series, a sense that the warmth being performed on screen was not quite connecting as intended. These are the moments that defined how the general public related to Meghan's television work in 2025. Not the recipes, not the flower arrangements, the pretzel bag. Number 3. The brand name that had to change. Before has ever existed, there was the American Riviera Orchard, the lifestyle brand that Meghan announced with considerable fanfare in early 2024 was built around the idea of the California coastal lifestyle she was now living, with a name that evoked the sun-drenched stretch of Santa Barbara coast where Montecito sits. The brand announced itself with a limited edition jam giveaway sent to a select group of celebrities, generating exactly the kind of aspirational social media content a lifestyle brand launch requires. The announcement was elegant, and the aesthetic was coherent. Then the problems started. First, there was an existing company called American Riviera that had been operating in the general market. Second, the trademark application for the new brand encountered obstacles that delayed the formal legal establishment of the brand identity. Third, by the time the brand was ready to formally launch, the name had already attracted mockery, and the association with a relatively small California geographic area felt limiting for a global product line. The brand was reborn as Ever in early 2025, a name chosen to evoke continuity and authenticity, a reference to the phrase meaning, "as it has always been." Meghan explained the name by connecting it to her pre-royal lifestyle blog, The Tig, saying that followers of her original work would recognize the continuity of character it represented. It was a relaunch rather than a launch, which meant it arrived carrying the memory of the previous version. The rename was handled without a major public incident, and the products did sell. But a brand that had to be renamed before it properly launched had already used up some of the credibility that a new business needs in its earliest months. And that same pattern, a polished rollout colliding with growing skepticism, soon began shaping the response to Meghan's biggest media project of the year as well. Number 2. The critics found a common language. The reviews of With Love, Meghan were not all written by the same people or published by outlets with the same editorial positions or target audiences, but they converged on a remarkably consistent set of observations, which suggests that what they were describing was genuinely there in the material rather than being a function of any particular critical agenda. The Guardian used the phrase, "so effortfully whimsical," to describe what the show was doing. The Independent described it as queasy and exhausting, and awarded it 1 star. The Washington Post observed that no matter how genuinely Meghan tried to come across on screen, the columnist felt irritable watching her, and acknowledged that this response was perhaps unfair but was nonetheless real and consistent. What these reviews were all trying to say, in their different ways, is that the show generated a feeling of watching effort rather than ease. The genre of lifestyle television that, with Love, Meghan was trying to occupy, the genre of people like Ina Garten and Nigella Lawson, who have built enormous audiences through this format, depends absolutely on a quality of relaxed naturalness that is paradoxically very difficult to produce. The host has to appear to be simply living, cooking, and enjoying company, and the audience has to believe in that appearance completely. With Love, Meghan's 23% Rotten Tomatoes rating, having released 2 full seasons and a holiday special, is the concrete measure of how comprehensively the critics agreed that this quality was absent from the show. It is not a show that divides critical opinion. It is a show that united it in a direction that was not useful to anyone involved. And after all of this, after the ratings and the reviews and the viral pretzel moments and the brand rename and the Netflix withdrawal, where does Meghan Markle actually stand? And is the story really over? Number 1. The story is not over yet. The framing of Meghan Markle's situation as a downfall or an ending is a more dramatic interpretation of the facts than the facts themselves fully support. The picture is complicated, the trajectory is difficult, and the setbacks have been real and documented. But the situation is also still unresolved in ways that make a definitive conclusion premature. As Ever is still operating. Its products still sell out. The supply problems that plagued the first months of the brand's existence have been largely resolved. The deal with Netflix, while downgraded from the original arrangement, has not been ended entirely. Archewell Productions still has projects in development. Meghan is expected to appear in Close Personal Friends, a comedy with an established cast, which would mark her return to acting, and the possibility of a Suits revival, which has been discussed across the television industry, would give her a route back to the role and the audience that first made her famous before any of this other chapter began. Harry and Meghan appeared together publicly at the 2026 NBA All-Star Game in February, at Paris Fashion Week in early 2026, and at other events. Whatever the state of their private relationship, the public partnership continues. They still have the Montecito home, the foundations, the production company, and the name recognition that few people on Earth possess. What has been definitively demonstrated over the past year is that the specific strategy Meghan pursued in 2025, using a lifestyle television show as the anchor for a broader brand and business ecosystem, did not work at the scale required. The show did not find its audience. The brand lost its financial backer. The communications team cycled through at a rate that created ongoing instability. And the personal pressures underneath all of it have generated sustained speculation that the couple themselves have not fully addressed. But none of that means the next chapter is written yet. Careers in entertainment have survived failures of this kind before, sometimes by returning to the work that originally demonstrated the talent, and sometimes by finding an entirely new direction that nobody predicted. Whether Meghan finds either of those paths, and when, is the real question that remains open. What is not open is the question of whether 2025 delivered on the promise it was supposed to fulfill. It did not, and the documented evidence of that failure is extensive enough to be beyond dispute. Which of these 10 truths surprised you the most? And after everything that happened in 2025, do you think Meghan's reinvention strategy is still working, or has the public already made up its mind? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.